Richard Maltby Jr. and David Shire, Esquire, are the only songwriting team in musical history who can boast a 70-year friendship and a current new off-Broadway hit show, About Time. Before we welcome our esteemed guests and lifelong bromancers, I just wanted to remind our viewers about some of their best-known and well-loved shows, such as Big on Broadway, along with Starting Here, Starting Now, and Closer Than Ever off Broadway. David Shire won an Oscar for his song It Goes Like It Goes from Norma Ray, and Richard Maltby has 2 Tonys and 2 Drama Desk Awards for Ain't Misbehavin' and Fosse. Together, they've won an OCC Award for Closer Than Ever, as well as a Grammy nod for Starting Here, Starting Now. Their collective film and theater collaborators include Barbra Streisand, Harold Prince, Bernadette Peters, Susan Stroman, Francis Ford Coppola, and Andrew Lloyd Webber. That's Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber to you. Stephen Sondheim was a friend and admirer. He even added them to his famous list of songs I wish I'd written, at least in part. We're thrilled to have them here as our guests today on Two on the Aisle. Hello, Richard and David. David and Richard.
Hello. Hello.
Nice. Welcome. Good to have
Hi, Leslie.
Leslie mentioned in her introduction 70 years, which is longer than most collaborations, most marriages. So how does a theatrical snob, and I'm quoting from Exeter, and a, quote, hick from Buffalo, manage to make it work and still be talking to each other after all these years?
Well, as Richard says, it's because we haven't died. But the truth is we like each other. We didn't at first. We met in Yale Commons, and your characterizations of each of us is accurate. He thought I was a hick from Buffalo. I thought he was a snob from Exeter. We were both right, but we managed to, within a year, have a really working collaboration going and getting our first show on at Yale Dramat.
Yeah, we funnily enough, the patterns that we established then are as the patterns that we use right now. We talk about the character, we talk about the story that we're setting, and that leads to a phrase or a melody or something. Usually, David goes off, and when he really has the character or the scene in his mind, and out comes some melody that I would never have expected. But it has dialogue in it, it has words in it, and that always I find inspiring. David writes for the language of people, and I just find that kind of wonderful. So, if there's a joke in it, there's a joke in the music that gives me a firm footing.
It's interesting because I understand you recycle things as well, so I find that really funny that you were the early recyclers.
Well,
all
songwriters do it. You write. The sun will come out tomorrow. That was a trunk song of Charlie Strauss.
Man I Love was in 3 shows or 2 shows before it wound up in the show that it stayed in.
Yeah,
Gershwin can have a trunk. We can have a trunk.
Everybody does, because melodies come sometimes to composers and they don't know exactly what to do with them. And in this case, there were several melodies that were written for Closer Than Ever that we didn't have any place for, but they absolutely inspired me to a melody to a lyric that has gone into the show. And then, of course, the opening of the second act, which is David's instrumental from Saturday Night Fever called Manhattan Skyline, which transferred into a 4-hand piano arrangement with Dennis Cordell, our musical director, and his wife, Annie. And that was so thrilling, I just had to write words to it. So I wrote a whole story about artists coming to New York on that melody.
It was a lovely opening. I really enjoyed that very much.
Yeah.
no a lyricist that I know would ever think of that song as something to write a lyric for.
Well,
Uh, Richard just makes it sound like a natural. It's just
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
it's got a real catchy melody. It's got a real hook to it. And you just want to, you just want to see that on the stage. And
Well, I'm
it
sorry.
leads us to songs. I mean, most people are surprised by the show. They no matter what they think they're going to get, the show has so many different twists and turns in it. It's funny when they don't expect it to be funny, and it's touching when they don't expect it to be touching. And it's an emotional experience, and I don't know that people really expected that that's what it was going to be.
Well, we're talking about time, of course, the trilogy you never actually planned to write.
Well, we assembled a show when we were starting out called Starting Here, Starting Now, which was in fact a lot of trunk songs, and it was intended to be just a nightclub, um, a nightclub show, and it turned out that it actually had a dramatic structure to it, and oh my Lord, people wanted to produce it, and so we moved it, and it ran for 9 months, and 15 years later we had another collection of songs. These were not freely from shows, but from a file I was kind of collecting about stories that people had told me that I thought really should be songs. And slowly we have added those together and made them into songs, and that became Closer Than Ever, which with some songs that were cut from shows, um, was about, it turned out, sort of the middle part of life, older and wiser, the complexities of marriage, divorce, learning more about it. And then it seemed like it was missing one more piece in order to be a whole collection. So Starting Here, Starting Now, Closer Than Ever, and About Time are what we call Life, a musical. It's the whole arc of a life, and everything that's in it. And it's I think that's part of the reason why it is so moving. And also, funnily enough, it's not just for people who are older. 20-year-olds come to the show and are just as moved, I think, because the problems and the complexities of life hit them too.
and I
I
think they also see their parents in it as well.
They see their parents and their
It's a
grandparents.
different way of
Yeah.
seeing
For
them,
me, it was a very appropriate show because I just turned 65 a few months ago. So I do take issue with a remark that your narrator makes. The chorus comes out, the actors come out, and he says, "Wait a minute, you're not young, you're not perky."
Who are you? We're your ensemble. Yeah, but you're not young and perky.
Now, I will grant you they are not young, but I thought they were very perky.
They're very,
That's
yes.
a little bit of a joke on them. I mean,
yes,
it's just
obviously.
that you expect a review to have really like 20-year-olds. That's the standard. The standard thing for his reviews was a bunch of young, talented people who you've never heard of who come out and dazzle you. But we open we opened the door to a much wider group of people, and I mean they announce that they're 65, but they're not. The performers are actually a bit younger than that. So
What's interesting is I saw Eddie Corbett's Due to Bias. I mean, that's
yes.
I remember it very well.
Isn't he a dazzling performer?
Yes,
He's
well,
just,
they all are. I
yeah.
say I'm not singling him out, but I just remember that I saw him do that. No, they all are. They are very gifted. You have a marvelous cast there.
They are indeed.
I'm going to direct this question to David. When you did your first show in 1961, what was New York, what was Times Square like back then?
Um, I hadn't spent much time in Times Square until then. I grew up in Buffalo and went directly from Buffalo to Yale, and Buffalo's quite different from Times Square. Richard grew up in New York. Maybe you should answer that question.
Well, I was so dazzled by New York anyway. First of all, my father's idea of a really great time was to go and stand in the middle of Times Square and look at the lights. That was, that gives you a sense of what family I came from. And so at that time, Times Square was supposedly, a slum and had pornographic movies on 42nd Street, and it needed to be cleaned up. I never saw any of that. I just saw theaters. I mean, Guys and Dolls and The King and I and South Pacific, and those are the shows that were running when I was a kid. I was taken to Where's Charlie when I was like 8,
Mm.
and I just had the best time. I was so entranced with the theater, the space in which a curtain goes up and a show happens in front of your eyes. It just completely dazzled me. What I really wanted to do was be a set designer, because I wanted to,
Oh,
which happened all the way up until I was at Yale and it realized that I couldn't draw. And that was kind of that was a career killer. My career as a set designer stopped right then. I wanted to do the Easter show at the Radio City Musical. That's what I wanted to design more than anything.
when did you know you could direct? How did that happen? Was that organic?
Well, what happened was that I was very unhappy as a lyricist, because the lyricist is back in the hotel trying to fix the two bad lines while everybody else is having fun in rehearsal. And I realized that I mean, what was I doing being a lyricist? That wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to create the musical, and in the musical theater, the director is really the author of the musical. I mean, everybody
Mm.
else is the author too, but the author of the totality is the director. And it slowly dawned on me that that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to create the whole show, and that means I would be a director. I thought I wasn't ready to be. I hadn't. I went to Yale. I went to the drama school, but I didn't do it as a director. So I'd never had any training as it. I just went and made a training program for myself. I said yes to benefits and one-man shows and anything I could get, I could direct anything. And one day somebody said, well, you did so well with Starting Here, Starting Now. Why don't you do something with Fats Waller? That my friend Murray Horowitz said that. And I said, why? And he said, well, come, I'll play some of his stuff for you. And I thought, oh, this is something could belong on a stage. So we attempted to do a little nightclub show with a few performers. And we went into rehearsal on January 1st for a little nightclub show with no intention whatsoever. And 6 months later, we were on Broadway and we had won every award you can win in New York. And I thought that's just what Broadway was.
There you
You
go.
open a show and everybody loves you.
Well, when you have the right everything put
Works for
together.
me.
You also, pardon me, you also should mention, Richard, that you became a director of our shows, at least, out of self-protection, because other directors had screwed up or didn't quite understand what the subtext of the lyrics were, and the kind of songs we were writing were really a different, they had a different flavor, and they would direct the surface of the lyric, whereas the subtext was often what was really going on. So Richard felt
That's
our
very
shows
much.
wouldn't work until he directed them.
That is true. It wasn't so much that I directed, that I was a better director, but I didn't do anything wrong. And it is true. We didn't realize it at the beginning so much, but we really do write differently. We write a dramatic stories in songs, and that's not what a lot of sort of standard musical theater directors were accustomed to doing. So,
One of the things I love
There
so much
is,
about music is it's like the French chanson. It's like Jacques Brel. Every single one is a story. You know,
Yes.
there's a character and it tells a tale. I found that it isn't very American. It's more European. It's a lovely thing.
Yeah, I think that's what's unusual about time, and why I think people who come to it are really surprised by it. They're
Mhm.
surprised that there are so many stories in it, and that it's dramatic and
Mhm.
funny, and both and frantic or dramatic and funny at the same time.
Yeah,
We
like life, huh?
think of our
Yes,
music.
exactly like life. Yes.
We think of
my
our music as a
introduction.
collection of short stories. It's like a novel is a musical, but we're doing a collection of short stories.
Indeed.
My introduction to you as composer lyricist was Baby. One of
Yeah.
my all-time favorite show tunes is the ladies singing their song. And most musicals are based on something, but Baby is, I think, an entirely original work. How did it come about?
It is an original work, but it came from us. I mean, David can tell the story about
Yeah, it came.
driving in the car with
My brother-in-law at the time was Francis Ford Coppola, and my wife, Talia Shire, who was Talia Coppola. Um, we would often go up to Napa to visit him at his vineyards. And one day we were taking a ride, Francis and I said to Francis, it's so hard to find new ideas for musicals that we want to do. And this was a period when musicals were mostly big and extravagant. And he said, well, why don't you do a small show instead? Why don't you do something that's very personal? He says, like, what's the most exciting thing most dramatic thing that's happened in your life? And I said, without hesitating, being present at the birth of my son, my first son. And he went like that, and that was the birth of baby.
a symphony orchestra went, but
I went back to New
The one you
York.
always carry in the back seat of the car. Is that the one?
we always have a symphony orchestra in the backseat of the car. Yes.
I,
Well,
I
talking
went
about
back to New York and I told Richard about the idea, and he didn't like it. He said, a show about babies, but he made the brilliant perception after a while that the show was not going to be about baby, it was going to be about the parents of a baby that they were about to have. The show is really about the three couples. The baby only makes an appearance for the last, 5 minutes of the show.
Well, that's not exactly true. It was that the advent of a baby, the discovery that you have a baby coming, is reality. Your relationship can be kind of amorphous. You can sort of be in love with each other. You can sort of be vague about things. But with a baby, you have to stop and get real. And and it is quite true. I mean, it's a story that happens every day all over the world. But the baby comes in and you start becoming a grown-up and you start becoming something else. You become a parent, which is an extraordinarily complicated change. Whatever you were as a child or whatever you were before that, you shift into something else. And it's brave and it's selfless and it's great, good-hearted, and it is filled with love, and it means giving up a whole lot of stuff. And
Wow.
and
Love
every,
and power.
and that's really what the show is
Wow.
about. So it's about how babies change your life, and as such, was the 9 months of the development of the baby was a change for each of these stories that we were telling. They all become different people. So when the baby is born, they're born as well.
I read that you had updated Baby for the Paper Mill Playhouse a couple of years ago.
Well, actually, it was for a small group called the Out of the Box Theatricals in New York. What happened is sometimes you change a show because it's tired or it needs to be but in our case, there were actual specific technical things that happened and that had changed. The whole medical procedure, the whole medical issue of infertility was different. A woman getting pregnant at 40 was very strange back then. It's relatively common and relatively safe. So we changed that. And then specifically, we always felt that it was too bad that we couldn't bring the gay world into the show because children are important in one form or another, either because you have them or because you're sad because you won't have them. And gay marriage had suddenly opened the door to that, and suddenly everybody was dealing with children. These same issues, they were as real for gay couples as for heterosexual couples, and that allowed us to make one of the couples two women, and that was a revelation because, in fact, the infertility issues for women were way worse, way more complicated, and way more dramatic and mind-blowing than even for a heterosexual couple. So it opened the door to a whole different drama.
Any plans for the future? Well,
shows have a life. Shows go on. This run was a 5-week run, and we will stop in April 5th. It will be done. All of the shows that we've done have had lives all around the world. So we will probably embark on that.
We have a show in the oven, so to speak. Actually, it's finished. An adaptation of a restoration comedy by Wickerly, The Country Wife. Very risque.
Wonderful.
But
Jack Horner, yeah.
well,
that's exactly it. And
it is set in New Orleans in 1850, with an all-black cast except for one white entrepreneur.
Incredible.
And
now, this is very clever.
There looks like good chance that it will be done in New Orleans.
Is this breaking news? Are we the first people to know about this? I didn't see anything about that anywhere.
No,
it is breaking news. We have never announced that this, but there is a wonderful theater in New Orleans that wants to do it, and if we can work it all out, we'll open there next spring.
That is exciting beyond belief.
Oh, I'll say.
The show is about time. It is playing until April 5th, maybe beyond. And David and Richard, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Leslie.
Real
It's
pleasure.
really been wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Times are bad. Turning on the news makes you scream. Seems as if the whole world's a god-awful dream. Time to write a show too. All of my life I've been in love with the trade I'm in. Happy through thick and thin, turning out songs. Something happy to kick off a show. Time to write a show too. Wait. Who are you? We're Ensemble. Yeah, but you're not young and perky. I'm sorry, but I don't want you.
Well, then don't write a show about being your age.
This is what you want. Life, a musical.
Part 3.
About time.
Comes